Do you hear that first hush at the edge of the firelight, where a story slips free of its cage and pads closer on careful feet? Enter the realm where legends awaken and nightmares walk among us. I set out at sundown, the sky rinsed in copper and violet, the road unspooling toward a country that keeps old promises and older threats. Heat still breathes from the asphalt. Sage and dust burn in the last light. Beside me, a recorder clicks on. Ahead, the mesas grow into hulking silhouettes. Everything begins with a meeting, a voice, a place. So I go to the place where the earth holds memories like char in its crust and listen for a voice that agrees to speak. This land knows the word, though many will not say it out loud. They speak around it, gesture toward it with a glance at the hills, tap ash off a cigarette with a thumb that trembles once. A creature that moves between skins, walks as a man, as a coyote, as something that learns the shape of your shadow and wears it like a coat. They call it a medicine gone wrong, a will bent by hunger, a choice made in darkness that cannot be unmade. It listens when you laugh, studies how you rise from a chair, how your foot takes weight. Mimicry, perfect, shameless. The boundary you trust, it erases. I sit with a grandmother by a low fire. Her house breathes cedar smoke and boiled coffee. A dog lies under the table, rigid as a fault line. She doesn't tell me how anyone becomes one. She refuses the trap of instruction. Instead, she tells me what happens when it comes. The sudden cold on the skin like you've stepped into a cellar, the scent of rot and coins, the way the night seems to turn inside out. Her eyes shine in the flame's small pulse. She speaks softly, almost as if the syllables themselves have teeth. A thing that replaces, that spoils, that leaves you doubting your own name. Keep your windows up when the highway thins and the radio sputters into a low, hungry buzz. I drive past shiprock, shouldering the horizon like the back of a whale. Wind scrapes sand along the guardrail, a hiss that never ends. Night drops like a trapdoor. Range fences flicker in the headlights. Jackrabbits freeze and vanish. The road is a ribbon between worlds, and every shoulder could hold a watcher you don't see until it tilts its head at the precise angle of a person who knows you. I meet a state trooper outside a diner that smells of onions and hot coffee. He shows me dashcam stills on a cracked phone, a figure blurred by motion, too tall to be a coyote, too lean to be a person in a coat. The radio, he says, went to static even with the engine off. His breath ghosts in the cool air as he smokes, a habit he picked up after the second time. It paced the car, he murmurs, never crossed in front. It wanted me to get out. Later, I walk a gravel shoulder where another driver reported something knocking on the passenger door while she fueled up. The pump clicked, the wind eased, a knuckle rapped, slow and patient. She left the nozzle in the tank and drove until the next town with it flapping like a flag. The land tells its own story, the way a scar tells a fight. Petroglyphs, carved into volcanic stone, look like animals with human masks. Dry washes whisper of sudden floods and sudden visits. Gas stations sit alone in bowls of light, moths dizzy in their glow. A deputy points to tracks in a Kalashi lot after a call about voices outside a trailer. They change shape, they narrow, they carry weight and then none. They stop against bare concrete as if the ground refuses to help anymore. Heat leaves the surface and the chill rises. Something wants company. Something learns your lullabies. One man waits for me in the doorway of a trailer patched with sheet metal and duct tape, the door chimes tangled with hair and bits of polished tin. Intrigue rides on his voice as he asks if the camera is on. He brings me a box wrapped in twine, careful as a priest with a reliquary. The air inside carries a mineral coolness, like a cave behind a waterfall. Brass knobs are warm, though you haven't yet turned them. Boards blackened by lantern smoke absorb your pulse. There are chimneys blocked halfway up by brick, flues that feed into nowhere. A vent whispers behind a grill. It carries a distant, stuttering tread that might only be the old bones of the place settling. Your breath plumes faintly, as if a window were open somewhere just enough to let winter through a keyhole. The path ahead refuses to align with the path behind. You mark turns and returns, and the marks never match. They come in daylight with cameras and leave with shadows on their tongues. A docent, face practiced into a smile for strangers, guides a group past a corner where traffic noise grows quiet for no reason. She pauses to speak, and a cold breath grazes the soft under her ear. The hairs on her neck rise, visible beneath her collar. A word arrives, right there, exhaled so close it warms the conch of her ear and chills her spine. Hush. She refuses to look back and still sees the outline of a gentleman in an old brown suit in the glass ahead, standing where no man stands. When she turns, he's gone. In the reflection, the suit fades last, drifting like smoke. A man from maintenance works alone on a Tuesday, when rain darkens the redwood and rainwater ticks in pots. He lifts a panel and the air changes, leaf mold and iron nails. At the end of a narrow service hall, a figure with a cap and a trimmed mustache pushes a wheelbarrow heavy with nothing. The man's boots are the quiet kind that leave no sound in memory. He strides, he passes, he melts at the corner. The maintenance worker sets down his tools and puts a hand to the wall. It is warmer where the figure walked, like sun against brick, though no sun has reached that place in hours. Later, he will count prints in the dust and find only his own. Children sometimes stop and sniff and ask who smokes cigars here. No one, the guide answers, though the sweet dark plume still curls through an empty stairwell, spiraling toward a ceiling that stops it. Groups report a woman at the end of an upstairs hall in a high-collared dark dress. She doesn't move, she simply remains. Cameras lifted breathe a mechanical sigh, the focus hunts and fails. A lens clicks, the screen shows a smear of light and a suggestion of a face, eyes too attentive, mouth crushed tight. Then the file corrupts and refuses to open. Another visitor complains of a pressure on his coat sleeve, a steady tug as if led away from a door that shouldn't be opened. A light bulb hums in the seance room and dims as footsteps cross the threshold, growing bright again only when the last heel lifts from the rug. Staff clean after hours and hear a piano downstairs, one aching note repeated until it loses hope. They descend to find the instrument with its lid shut and its keys covered in dust, so fine that a single fingerprint reads like a message pressed moments before. Evening falls differently over this estate. In the west, the sun drags a last red line across the gables and the tower vanishes into the color of plums. Birds settle in the cypress and hold their breath. Daytime noises flatten until you can count them. The far hiss of a road, the nick of a cricket, the mutter of pipes. A draft enters the maze and threads itself through hallways like a blindfold pulled playfully over eyes from behind. Stained glass, chosen because sunlight would never strike it directly, drinks the last light and returns none. Stair treads cool beneath your soles. A chandelier carries 13 candles. Their light does not reach the corners where the wallpaper's silver leaf flakes off like fish scales. Underfoot, the boards give back a slow, sympathetic answer to every step, a conversation in timber. At night, the mansion seems to continue building itself in micro motions, in the tiny contractions of wood and nail and plaster as the temperature drops. Floorboards sigh at the edge of hearing. A door you left half closed settles on its jamb with the softest kiss. A latch shifts and finds its notch. The narrowest passageway carries a rustle, a whisper, possibly the long, slow slide of a palm along a banister that remembers who owned this place. Light from a street lamp paints a fragile ladder across the floor. Its rungs break into pieces as a figure you cannot quite register passes through. Somewhere, something taps a single finger against glass, the way a person threatens to ask a question and then chooses not to. You think of Sarah's long nights, her chair drawn near a table in a cramped room with 4 doors and no hall, her head tipped as if listening to directions delivered from a mouth pressed right against the other side of the wall. The last guide leaves and sets the alarm. Silence swells and becomes a presence in its own right, a quilt laid over the old house from roofline to basement. The smell shifts again toward iron and dust, as if the building has a pulse that slows for the dark hours. If you walk now, your footsteps belong to you and to something else. They echo in pairs. A gust teethes at the edge of a door, testing the seal. Curtains move against closed windows. In the room where the floor holds a skylight, the night looks up from below like a quiet well. On a landing that goes nowhere, a figure waits, doesn't insist, only exists until you blink. As your eyes adjust, the halls lengthen. Breath fogs and dissolves near your lips. Somewhere a bell that should have been removed decades ago rings once, a sound you feel more than hear, metal shivering from a rope pulled by no visible hand. Now the building stands as it has learned to stand, a labyrinth with its own private logic, mapped not in blueprints but in footfalls, in glances, in the heat we leave on doorknobs. You think of the plans still tucked in boxes, of the pages filled with holes from the planchette's pin. You pass a door that opens onto nothing, and feel in your stomach the dropping of two stories your eyes never see. A mirror throws your face back at you from a room you thought was empty. There is a second reflection, barely there, disapproving, stern, then it isn't. At the edge of a long corridor, a velvet rope sags as if a hand gripped it an hour ago and let go. The wind lifts cautiously and lays its weight against the siding, and the entire structure replies with a murmur like voices layered, three deep, speaking almost at once. Will you find your way back?